Good afternoon, everyone. Good day to talk about some cool cash. Thank you all for coming out. Pretty exciting topic today. We don't often get the opportunity to talk about making $2.5 million available to our local business and property owners. And we've been talking about this for 2 years now, so people have started to take it for granted, but let's make sure we don't. You know, when I meet with mayors from other cities and villages around the state, when I meet with state officials, when I meet other officials from other communities, when they talk to us about our good fortune in being a $10 million award recipient, they are absolutely envious. So let's not take it for granted. We're very, very fortunate to be able to have this opportunity. It's really a unique opportunity. We worked very hard. A lot of people worked very hard over the last couple of years to try to do it right. And I want to take a few minutes just to thank the many, many people that have worked on this. Everything comes out better when there are many people involved and there's teamwork and consensus building. And we really have had that over the last couple of years. I want to thank the volunteers who are on our local planning committee. We worked for 6 months in generating our final strategic investment plan. I want to thank our 2 colleges, and particularly our 2 college presidents, Nancy Klanuski, who retired, and we wish her well last week, but we will miss her, and President Dragovich, both of whom work on our local planning committee, both of whom recognize how important it is for colleges for Oneonta to be a vibrant community, both of them who have pledged to do everything they can to see that colleges have a stronger presence in our community, and particularly in our downtown, and we will continue to work on that. I want to thank Destination Oneonta for all they've done to support us, and I want to thank the Otsego Chamber for all they've done to support us. We're working concurrently with this. We have a comprehensive plan update that is going on. I want to thank Otsego Now because they helped us fund that comprehensive plan update. We appreciate their support. And all of the volunteer members who are working on that comprehensive plan update, because that is a roadmap that will help guide us not only through this process, but as we grow for the next 5 to 10 years. Of course, I want to thank the members of our Common Council. This process will be overseen, well, the process is being overseen by Delaware Engineering. Elizabeth Horvath, I talked to you today. I want to thank Delaware Engineering for their work on this, Elizabeth particularly. But as Elizabeth will explain to you, we have established a Downtown Improvement Fund Project Selection Committee. These are volunteers, residents of the city of Oneonta, members of the community, who will evaluate all of the applications that are submitted for grants under this project. They will be responsible for making all of the funding decisions. That's a tough job, a lot of responsibility. I'm sure that they'll take some heat from some people. So I really appreciate them stepping up and being involved. And Elizabeth will talk a little bit more about that. And finally, some of our staff at City Hall, particularly our Community Development Director, Judy Pennington, is here in the front row today. Our Finance Director, Meg Hungerford. They have been working behind the scenes for the last 2 years, negotiating contracts with the state, working on all the formalities that have to be, making decisions about it to make sure that this thing runs as smoothly and as fairly and has the greatest impact for everybody who's concerned. So we really appreciate all they've done. And of course, our partners in New York State who have the confidence in us to make this award. We've been working with New York State Office of Community Renewal, New York State Department of State, and New York State Empire State Development Corporation, and of course the Governor's Office. So this has really been an effort of a lot of people coming from a lot of different places to work together to make decisions so that this is as meaningful as it possibly can be. I'm going to let Elizabeth talk a little bit more in detail about the Downtown Improvement Fund. That's what this meeting is about. Money to support local businesses and local property owners as we go forward. But I want to step back and just talk about how this fund, which is 25% of our $10 million award, is just one of a list of projects that comprise our downtown revitalization initiative. And we all have a tendency to look at it as a list of projects, but that's really not what it is. It is one initiative, and each of those projects is just one integral part of the whole. They are all designed to work together. And the overarching goal of the initiative is a pretty simple one. It's to find more reasons and more opportunities for people to be on our Main Street and in our downtown area. We want to give visitors, whether it's people traveling from across the country or people who live right here in Oneonta, more reasons to spend time downtown. We want to give our restaurants, we want to give our small businesses downtown more people on the street in order to increase business. We want to give people greater opportunity to live downtown. If you travel and you talk to people in other cities, particularly small cities, those that are doing best now are those that are providing opportunities to live downtown. That is something that more and more people appreciate, pedestrian-friendly downtown where they can get up and walk to the coffee shop, walk to stores, and not have to take the car out, not to use transportation. So wherever you go, the cities that are providing downtown living are the ones that are doing best. And up until now, we have predominantly college students living downtown. And that's not a bad thing. We love having our college students. We love having them live downtown. We don't want to move them out of our downtown. But we want to integrate our downtown so it's not predominantly college students only. We want to have a better mix, just like we do in all of our neighborhoods, where our year-round residents, families, adults live side by side with our college students. And we do better when we live that way than segregating our populations. So everything that we do is really geared towards creating more opportunities and more reasons for people to be in our downtown. Part of that, as I mentioned earlier, is to get our colleges more involved in the daytime so that we have more productive things going on that have to do with creativity, entrepreneurism, innovation through our colleges, through our young people having to be downtown, and give them, in turn, a greater opportunity to stay here after they graduate and continue to develop their new business or pursue their creative goals. We're looking at avenues such as artist space, we're looking at co-work space for young entrepreneurs. Everything we do is about creating more vibrancy, giving people more of an opportunity to be here. We're also, I spoke about making it more pedestrian friendly. We recognize that we have part of our downtown, a significant part of our downtown, Market Street area, which has tremendous potential but is underutilized for someone underdeveloped. We see this as a future center for innovation, creativity, entertainment, recreation. It has access to Nero Park, and we want to create better pedestrian access to Nero Park. Obviously, Foothills Performing Arts Center is a big part of the anchor for Market Street. We have funds to create a new transit hub, and that's a multimodal transit hub, which means it's not just about buses, it's not just about cars, but it's also about bike sharing programs. It's also about a welcoming center where people come into Oneonta and learn more about who we are and what we have to offer, possible taxi location, something that is a center for all transportation, both in and out of Oneonta, as well as internally within the city. And a complete redesign of Market Street to make it more pedestrian friendly, have better connections to Main Street, and make it more inviting, uplifting feel to it. So that's all part of what we're moving forward with. So as we go forward, now, anytime you're giving out money, it seems like you make as many enemies as you make friends. And that's because not everybody is going to get what they ask for. I'm sure that the committee is going to make the decisions, is going to do everything they can to be fair and to look as carefully as they can at funding the applications. But this is not about individuals. It's not about picking favorites. It's not about looking at what individual should get money in terms of these grants and who should. It's really about the future of the city. So we're looking for people who can benefit, who can prosper, who can make some money on their own, but at the same time have a vision for growing the future of this city. So all grant applications will use criteria that's based upon how much does your idea grow the city and make it a place where your kids, your grandkids, and other young people will want to either stay and be able to stay and live and work here, or want to come here and live and work here, and make this a more prosperous city for our kids. So we want people to succeed, we want businesses to succeed, we want you to do well, we want you to make money, but we're also looking for ideas that help grow our community and our city. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth Horvath, who's going to give you all of the details of the grant program, the Downtown Improvement Fund, and I think she'll have time for questions afterwards, and probably any comments that people want to make or ideas that we can have. So thank you for being here today, and this is a very exciting opportunity, and let's all work together to make the most of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon. Let's talk about the fund, shall we? I am going to try to keep my remarks brief. You're welcome, because I think there are probably some good questions out there in the audience as well. But my goal is to give you an overview of a brief overview of the DRI, because the mayor has already covered a lot of this information. Talk to you about the fund, the application materials that will be involved, what types of projects are and are not eligible, how the project selection process is going to work, a couple notes on funding details, and then timelines and deadlines. As the mayor was saying, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative is a program that Governor Cuomo set up in 2016. He had the bold idea of taking $100 million and setting it aside to award to 10 small cities to help revitalize their downtowns, recognizing, as the mayor was saying, that increasingly people, whether they're young professionals and millennials or retirees, people want to live in cities. The suburbs are not where it's at right now. People want to be able to live and walk in vibrant downtowns where they can access food and arts and take care of all of their needs in a community. So recognizing this, Governor Cuomo set up the first DRI, and Oneonta was the winner from our region, the Mohawk Valley, which is a pretty incredible feat right out the gate. As the mayor mentioned, we spent several months with the local planning committee, which represented higher education, lower education, heads of charitable organizations, large stakeholder organizations, community organizations, elected officials, small businesses. Everybody came together with a consultant team to try to understand what is the best vision for how we can allocate that $10 million across Oneonta, and how can we leverage private investment? How can we incite private investment through that? The strategic investment plan, which you can find online at the city's website, goes into all of the detail of what Oneonta proposed to the state. That was early 2017. And then much later in 2017, if I remember correctly, the state came back to us and said, okay, here's what you're going to get funded, and here's why. So this document actually outlines all of that. Again, the priority is transforming downtowns into livable, walkable, vibrant communities. As the mayor mentioned, Oneonta's award of $10 million is really, it's not a piecemeal set of individual projects, but it is $10 million that as a whole takes a number of different strategies to begin transforming downtown. The mayor mentioned most of these. There's going to be redevelopment of the Westcott lot, for example, the transit hub that just attracted another $4 million in investment. So a lot of different things that are going to go on across the next several years to help transform Oneonta to the vision that was presented in that plan. Now, what's the fund? That's what we're here to talk about today. The goal of the Downtown Improvement Fund: a larger and more diverse resident population in downtown Oneonta will result in increased spending and support for jobs in downtown stores and increased activity on downtown streets, and will support the revitalization of downtown. So exactly as the mayor said, attracting unique traffic into Oneonta, whether it's people who are visiting or people who are coming and deciding to live here, to boost the prosperity of the city. Now, what does the fund look like? It's about a quarter of the $10 million, $2.335 million in grant money for projects that will enhance downtown. You can see 4 categories there, and we'll spend a couple of minutes on each as we go through this presentation. Money for businesses, signs, and awnings, facade improvements to commercial buildings, money for the creation or rehabilitation of upper story, high quality market rate housing, and transformative projects. More on that soon. Let me introduce you to the application materials. First of all, I think that most of you probably grabbed this on your way in. If you didn't, we have more. But this is your cheat sheet for how to get access to an application. You can either download one from the city's website, and you can see, oh, sorry, that's on a different slide. The application materials that you'll find on the city's website, or in hard copy if you prefer that. You're welcome to email me for those, or stop by City Hall where there are some hard copies. You will find the applications themselves. We tried to keep the applications really simple, but we did ask you for enough detail so that we will be able to compare your project to another project to another project. The project selection committee is really going to have its work cut out for it. So we want to make sure that we're asking you for enough information that we can really assess: is the project viable? Does the project meet the goals of the DRI? Is the project going to actually be able to be realized within the next couple of years, and so on? So the applications themselves, then the go-to resource, program information for applicants. That's a stapled document that has all the information that you would need to be able to apply. Explanations of the different sections, a lot of the guidance that the state has given us in terms of what's eligible, what's not, what's a priority, what's not. We have a short set of frequently asked questions, and we've included the scoring rubrics. So for 3 of the 4 categories, signs and awnings, facade improvements, upper story housing, we've created metrics, scoring sheets, essentially, the project selection committee is going to be able to use to rank and essentially score these individual projects. So as an applicant, it's worth it for you to spend some time looking at the scoring rubrics, because if you're going to be applying for signage, it makes sense to understand what the project selection committee is going to prioritize as it's scoring your project. And lastly, the design guidelines. These are important. If you are applying for DRI money for your project needs to adhere to the design guidelines. The design guidelines were developed in conjunction with the design committee from Destination Oneonta and a consultant team, Paperkite Creative, who do design and marketing. And what the design standards lay out in about 30 pages is what we want your projects to look like visually, how we want you to approach the design of what you're doing. What color palettes and materials should you be seeking to use? How should you think about renovating your facade? What do we mean when we say high quality market rate housing? What do those apartments look like? So the design guidelines, we hope ultimately will be an even more useful document for the city as a whole, not just for people who are applying to the Downtown Improvement Fund, because this really, in cooperation with the city, sets up and sets forth the vision of how the city would like to see its downtown corridors develop aesthetically, visually. But if you're applying for this money, you do have to adhere to the downtown design standards. So take a look at that as well. Application packet, this is this one pager, as I mentioned, and You can go to the city's website and click on the Downtown Revitalization Initiative tab, or you can go to City Hall, or you can call me, or you can email me. Those are all, oh, and we also have a few applications here physically as well. So if you see me afterwards, I'm happy to give you one. So that's where you get your application packets to start the process. It's important to understand what types of projects are eligible for this kind of funding. The first thing is your project needs to fit within the DRI boundary. This is the geographic area that Oneonta determined and identified when it was first applying for the DRI. The governor asked us to define a tight, enclosed downtown area that could take advantage of this funding. You've heard the mayor talk about a number of projects that we find along Market Street and on Main Street, Water Street, connecting all in this area. But if you are a property owner or operating a business from Walnut Street South all the way down to Neola Park, you are eligible to apply. So projects outside of that boundary, not eligible. Eligible projects and activities. I've listed a lot of the eligible projects already. The signage, the facades, upper story housing, and transformative, again, more in a moment. There are a few things that these funds are not eligible for. So you will not get money to build a building from scratch or to totally demolish a building. You can't use the money to buy real property. On the signage front, blade signs, yes. Awnings, yes. Freestanding signs, no, not eligible. Interior lit signs, not with this particular funding. You can't use it for non-permanent fixtures, so if you are renovating upper story housing, you can use the money for construction, use it for windows, but you can't use it for a dishwasher, for example. And you need to be consistent with the design guidelines and, again, the goals of the DRI. I'm going to take you briefly through each of the four categories. Signage. The priorities in this round of funding are for blade signs and awnings. Blade signs are the signs that stick out horizontally in the building. One thing that we identified in the course of planning for the strategic investment plan is that visually looking down, say, Main Street in Oneonta, you don't necessarily have a good visual understanding of what's coming up before you. It's often not until you're standing directly in front of a business that you know what storefront this is. So blade signage in places like Corning, New York, help you understand what's coming up. It's very inviting to the pedestrian to go a little bit further, this store, there's an ice cream store, there's a shoe store, there's a hardware store, kind of draw us in. So we're hoping that the blade signage will have the same very beneficial effect in Oneonta. And awnings really act in the same way. As I mentioned, freestanding signs, interior lit signs, not for this money. Facade improvements. There's a real priority placed on uncovering or rehabilitating the beautiful historic details of our downtown buildings. Uncovering where things have been covered, bringing, say, store window openings back to their original dimensions, whether they got smaller or larger, beginning to create more visual harmony in downtown Oneonta because we do have so many beautiful, surprisingly well-preserved buildings. So looking at trying to take your facades and echo what has made our facades great in the past. There are a number of different components to facade improvements, whether it's painting or repainting, carpentry, changing the size of windows or doors or entryways. So all sorts of facade improvements are eligible under this program. Upper story housing. I'm sure many of you know that a lot of the upper stories, even on Main Street in Oneonta, look kind of like this. They can be vacant, they can be empty, they can be underused. And because the consultant team identified a real unmet need for rental housing, high quality rental housing among young professionals and early retirees and upcoming retirees, we're going to take that opportunity to convert some of that unused space in our downtown into high quality upper story housing. So we're talking about year-round occupied, market rate rents with amenities that you associate with high quality housing. So a washer dryer unit within the apartment, full kitchens rather than just say a toaster oven on a counter, ample storage, security, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the recent experience that we've seen in the transformation of the Versailles building and the newly christened Westland Apartments, they get snatched up and there are waiting lists. So I think there's an incredible opportunity here for people who are interested in renovating these beautiful buildings and turning them into market rate housing. Transformative projects. I don't know what these are. I can tell you what sorts of guidelines we're placing around this. And I should step back and say that the city was incredibly creative in its negotiations with the state. It was really important to the city of Oneonta that people applying for this land be able to think creatively and dream big. So it could be that you have in mind a project that could use Downtown Improvement Fund funding that is going to completely transform Oneonta. Maybe it's going to bring 50 jobs. Maybe it's going to create some sort of activity that is unique in the country, and people will be coming from all over the United States to see what it is that we've built here in Oneonta. Maybe you want to gut a building and turn it into makerspace and co-working space. I don't know what these projects are going to be, but I suspect that some of you do. I suspect that some of you have ideas that could be this big. And as long as you're staying within what's eligible, so again, you can't build a building from scratch, but you could take a building that you own and completely gut it and turn it into an IMAX theater. I don't know if that's really a transformative project that we're looking for, but the idea here is to dream big. We don't have a scoring rubric with this particular category of project, and that's because we don't know what we're going to get. So if you're putting together one of these applications, just sell us. Tell us why your idea is transformative. Is it going to create 50 jobs? Is it going to bring people from all over Europe and the Middle East to come visit for some reason? Is it going to put Oneonta on the map so that more and more people come here? What makes it transformative? Prove it to us. Let us know. Project selection. Once we've gotten the applications in, application review starts. And I'll be the first to gate. I'll look at all the applications and make sure that there isn't anything missing, so that if your application is incomplete, rather than it just being kicked out, I'll come to you and say, if you're still missing X and Y, can you get this to me within 10 days? Then the project selection committee is going to begin meeting. And as the mayor mentioned, this is a group of 6 people who are made up of community leaders. These are people who have backgrounds in banking and finance, consulting, real estate, small business, and they're people who are deeply embedded in the community. They really care what happens here. So it'll be their job, but thankfully not mine, to make these decisions and let people know whether or not they're getting any money. They will be following the scoring rubrics. Again, the scoring rubrics are on the city's website, and they're also available in the application packets. And they are going to have to follow some underwriting and priorities. So underwriting, really assessing the true feasibility, the nuts and bolts of the project. The project has to have reasonable costs, committed financing, needs to be financially feasible with a realistic return on investment. In some cases, we're going to ask you to tell us about your team members, because if you're thinking about creating 40 units of upper story housing and you've never done it before, that's not going to be as competitive an application as the team who's done this before. So show us that you're ready, show us that you can take on whatever kind of project you're interested in. You also have to be current on your taxes and fees with the city. And then a number of other GRI priorities that you can read or probably already have read on the slides. Stuff that we've talked about: readiness, feasibility, decrease blight, improve historic structures, and so on. Couple notes on funding details. For those of you who haven't had a New York State grant of any type before, this is a typical New York State grant in that it is reimbursement based. So the idea is you do the project, you pay for the work, you keep all of your receipts, and then you ask for that money to be reimbursed. That's how the state likes to operate. We in the city recognize that not everybody has thousands of dollars of free, uncommitted capital to just pour into these projects. So if that's your situation, the city is also setting up a low-interest loan program, a very low-interest loan program, where it's 2% per annum. So you would be able to borrow that money to cover your costs up front, and then get reimbursement from the state. So I thought that was important to point out because it's the way that New York State does it is not ideal. However, one thing that is really nice to point out is the fact that for smaller projects below $20,000 in grants that you're seeking, the grant amount can be up to 100%. You don't have to have any skin in the game. It can just be flat out grant. As projects get bigger, you can request lower percentages up to 75%, 50%, and owner's equity goes up. You're going to be needing to put in your own funding, whether that's a bank loan that you've already obtained or money that you have free or money that you found on your couch. There will be a certain amount of skin in the game that we'll expect from some of the larger projects. And lastly, some of the larger projects will also entail an $800 deadlines. 2 deadlines. If you are only interested in signage or awnings, and you know that you're only interested in signage or awnings, then fill out the 2 pages in the application packet for signage and awnings. Get it to me by July 31st. That's a Tuesday, 4 p.m., and you will be eligible for early bird consideration. We would like to get this money on the street as fast as possible, and these applications should be pretty simple for the project selection committee to score, so we wanted to have a separate deadline for signs. If you're interested only in signs and you can't make that deadline, that's okay. Everything else is due on August 31st at 4 p.m. So that's all of the applications. It is completely at the whim of the project selection committee as to how many projects they fund and to what dollar amounts. No guidelines for them. They could choose to fund a single project for $2.335 million. They could fund 1,000 projects for smaller amounts of money, anything in between. So as a result, it's hard to know whether this fund will be completely extinguished at the end of this round or whether there will be money left over for future rounds of applications. If there is money left over, then we will, in 3 months, set out another call for applications. But if you have a good project and you're ready to go, apply now, because I can't guarantee that there will be any money left after this. It feels to me like in the city there's a lot of pent-up demand for this transformational money. So that would be my recommendation on deadlines. This is the timeline. This is what we're doing today. Early bird deadline for signs. By August 31st, everything is due. The project selection committee is going to be spending a lot of time meeting in September and evaluating applications. Once the project selection committee has made its decisions, those decisions go up to New York State, the Housing Trust Fund Corporation. And it takes them a couple of weeks to read through the materials and make sure that they're comfortable funding what the PSC has recommended. But once those decisions come down from the state, then we'll be able to let you know who's got great money. And then we go from there. So I wonder if any of you have any questions or comments. We would be happy to entertain them. Barbara?
This is on the lighting. So if some of the businesses wanted lighting over their sign, is that considered part of the facade improvement?
It could be considered signage too. If the lighting is, you're talking about lighting that sort of shines down onto the sign.
Yes.
In between with that, would you? We could get one for signage. I mean, it's just part of the facade too, but then again, it's a necessary part of a lot of signage because you want your sign to be able to be seen at night. So yes, I think that would certainly be included in the signage.
You gave an excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Yes, please.
We have a church within the boundaries, if funding, eligible.
Churches are eligible. The only ineligible applicants are municipalities. So the city cannot request money from the state to do things with city-owned buildings, for example. Sir, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Well, please.
Regarding the perimeter, I understood Walnut. And now, do you mean over? I don't know how far over.
The best thing to do would probably be to look at an actual map. I can show you where in the application packet the map is.
Okay.
Pretty well delineates every single parcel, but as well, the map is posted on the city's website for anybody who wants to know that for the future. Yes, please.
My business, it rents from a landlord on Main Street. Is there any place in the application where if you are a renter business that you have to get permission or work in some way with the landlord? I'm sure it's true, you need to do that just to be nice, but does the landlord have to sign off on it? What's the deal there?
All you need is a signed letter from your landlord saying that your landlord is fine with this project. And there's not even a requirement that you have a lease for 5 years going forward, nothing like that. So if the landlord is cooperative, usually only good for the landlord, right? So, yes, sir. By interior lit signs, that can be a little fuzzy. Lighting within the sign itself. So digital signs, for example. The sign could be it could be a plastic sign that's within your building that has light shining on. That's fine. The lighting cannot be within the sign itself.
No LED sign.
Right.
No LED sign, right?
Right. Neon is technically interior, right? So I think there could definitely be good neon, but that's not part of what's going to fit within this grant funding category. Did I see another? Mr. May, you usually sorry, please. That can all be covered. Did everybody hear the question? The question was whether architectural and design and labor could all be covered under this fund. Yes. Do you have a question?
When you were talking about the approach of signage, like in the beginning when people walk in, like Corning glass, and go out there. You have this approach that you walk closer and closer, and then it's inviting. How do you do that here? Would you do it on I-88, where you're driving down I-88 and they have those new electronic displays that really show something? Could you put different ways of designs of putting them in different areas, leading you into a business on Main Street?
That is a really good question, and I kind of have an answer for you that is outside of this fund. Here we go. So as part of Oneonta's overall $10 million reward, it's gotten money for marketing, branding, and wayfinding, and that's underway right now. So there is a team, it's Trampoline Design, that is going to be spending the next several months figuring out exactly as you put it. How do you start attracting people into Oneonta? In some ways, Oneonta, downtown Oneonta, is hidden in plain sight. Everybody knows about Southside, but you don't necessarily go to the charming part of downtown city of Oneonta. So where on 88 do you start telling people, and how do you tell them? When you're turning onto Lettuce Highway, what does the signage look like? How do you invite people in? What do you invite them to? What do those signs look like? That's beyond my job description. I'm not good at design, but trampoline design really is. So they're actually going to be working on this, and that's going to be very complementary to all of the different parts of the initiative that the mayor described and that this fund is part of.
Don't be here, Bob. Don't be here at the neighborhood meetings like this, talk to everybody, get ideas. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to apply for two separate grants, one for the site and the other one for some sort of
Yes. Yes. You can have as many applications in as you like. And we would encourage that, especially if you have any creative ideas. Okay, well, I'm happy to take questions offline as well. Thank you all very much for your time and your attention. Very much.